thank you to our sponsors today, for which we are grateful for the way that they support us. And their names are all on the bottom of the sheets today, and they are Novartis, Bayer, Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer. And they've supported us, most of them, for a long time now, and we are very grateful to them for that sponsorship. Very briefly, our next meetings are in London on March the 9th and Manchester on October the 5th. And you're all welcome to either or both of those meetings. On your tables, there are evaluation forms. They're very important to us to be able to assess what you guys want out of meetings and get out of meetings like this. So please fill them in as you go, if you like. So when you have a speaker has finished, if there's something you want to make comment about what they've said, good or bad, please make it, and that helps us evaluate the meeting and make the meetings better in the future. Right, okay, what I'd like to do now, we've got about half an hour. If we can call up the agenda. Yeah, we've got a half an hour before Tori James is going to talk to us about donation devices and fundraising. So what I'd like to do is introduce all of the trustees and tell you all a bit about us. And maybe some of you might consider becoming a trustee, because unfortunately we've had a few of our trustees are no longer trustees for various different reasons, some very sad reasons, as you can imagine, others because they're very busy and aren't able to do the role anymore. So what I want to do is tell you about the current trustees and volunteers. I'll let them tell you about themselves. And if anybody here thinks that they might be able to fulfill a role voluntary or as a trustee, voluntary as in an assistant to us, or as formally as a trustee, please come and see one of the trustees afterwards and we can have a chat with you about it. But it is important to us to maintain our trustee levels, because it's an important job that we do, and we need as much help as we can. So I'll start with me. My name is Nick Puntis. I was diagnosed in 2010 with a 7-centimetre cyst in my stomach. I look like I've been stabbed 4 or 5 times and then slit up through the middle, because they tried to do it keyhole surgery, couldn't get it out after 2.5 hours, so then decided they needed to open me up. But they took my cyst out, the margins were clear, so I am cyst free. However, I had a very high mitotic count, which meant that the chances of it coming back were very high. So they put me on imatinib for 3 years, which was fine, some side effects, but worth it, because if it's keeping the cancer away, then I did it, and I was happy to do it. I'm off it now, so what are we now, 2017, so 7 years cancer-free, and long may that continue as far as I'm concerned. So I became involved. I came to a meeting like this. My first meeting was shortly after I was diagnosed in 2010, and then I became a trustee in 2012, I think it was. And since then, decided that I would take the role of chair, or they decided that I should take the role of chair. Which means I've got to stand up in front of everybody and do this bit, which I'm more than happy to do. So that's me. That's a little bit about me. We'll now go on to Jane.
Hello, Jane Blessington. Basically, in 2010, my daughter was diagnosed with GIST, and because there weren't any kind of special people I could go to in this country at the time who had a particular capability in paediatric and wild-type GIST, I went to America and then came back and approached GIST Support UK to say I wanted to set up a clinic in the UK to mirror what they had in America, to try and stimulate research. So GIST Support UK, I think, were a bit sort of startled by my initial arrival, but invited me straight away to become a trustee, and embraced everything I was hoping to achieve. And so subsequent to that, I've become vice chair of GIST Support UK. I'm heavily involved in all sorts of initiatives to improve treatments and facilities for GIST patients. And we also have a very successful paediatric and wild-type GIST clinic, which is hosted in Cambridge 3 times a year. It is in itself a research project, and has also, because of the support we've been getting, we've been in a situation where we've now got 3 research projects running. There's loads more to do. We don't have all the answers yet by any means, but we've moved it forward. So I'm very grateful to everything that Just Support UK has been able to offer, not only my family, but me personally, with this ambition to try and get to a cure for the younger people with GIST. So next person on the list is Sheena.
Hello, I'm a GIST patient. I was diagnosed in 2001 with a GIST in my stomach, which I had removed. And in 2003, it came back in the liver. And I went on to imatinib to reduce the tumours, and then had it resected. And since then, have been on imatinib until 2016, October, a year ago, when I came off imatinib. And we're just going to see what happens, whether I'm cured or it comes back. But it was a risk I was prepared to take because, I think we've got to know these things. When I was first diagnosed, I was introduced to someone called Dave Cook, who was the representative for the UK on Life Raft Group, which was the American GIST Society. And he, with Novartis, was setting up meetings in the UK for GIST patients. And when we first met, there were about 12 of us in London. And from there, I was invited to be a trustee when the GIST Support UK was set up in 2008 or 9, I think it was. And I was pleased to do that because I was already working for a charity and thought I had quite a few transferable skills. So at the moment I'm secretary to the charity.
Hello. Oh, hi everyone. I'm Victoria, or Tori for short. So I've been a trustee now for 3 years, maybe. I'm not sure. Before that, I did some fundraising for the charity, and then once I'd sort of pestered all my friends for their money, I decided to try and pester other people through the charity. So my role is largely fundraising and social media. And I'm involved with the charity because my husband, Richard, was diagnosed in 2007 when we were 21. While we were on holiday, in fact. It's a great way to meet your future in-laws. So Richard had a tumour in his stomach, which was then removed a few months later. And then we had regular scans and was clear until 2012, where they found some more tumours in his liver. So he started taking imatinib, but it turns out he's a wild type patient, so imatinib didn't work for him, and he's been taking sunitinib since then. And thankfully, Richard's now been on sunitinib for 5 years and is still doing well. So one of the other things which I'll talk to you about later as well is side effect management is something that over the time that Richard's been on sunitinib, it's something that we've learned a lot about, and I think there's a lot more knowledge that we could share, and probably as a group on the various drugs that we could share with each other and help benefit the GIST community. So I'll save that for later. That's me. David.
I am not a patient, nor am I related to a patient, thank God. My route to being with Just Support UK came through the pharmaceutical industry. I worked with one of the leading oncology manufacturers, and I spent most of my life working in cancer. Latterly, I was the national lead, commercial lead for sunitinib in the UK. And when I retired, I'd accumulated a tremendous amount of information, both about the drug and, more importantly, about the clinicians in the UK who were working in the area of GIST. So when I retired, I didn't want to expire, and I offered my services to the charity, and I've been, for the last 5 years, involved with them. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Lena's the next person on the list. Lena's not here. She is our European connection. Lena is German, although if anybody's met her, you can tell there's a hint of an accent, but you wouldn't really know it. She's somehow mastered the art of being able to speak English with almost an English accent. So Lena is also a patient. She now resides in Germany, and she was an assistant to David. In fact, she was treasurer, and then she's now become an assistant to David. And she will come to some meetings, so some of you may see Lena. She's doing okay as far as her gist is concerned, so she's doing well. Stella.
Is it switched on? Hi, well I'm the newbie. I apparently haven't even been ratified yet. So I've very recently been invited to become a trustee of GIST. And my association, I'm not a patient and I don't come with a background in terms of cancer, very thankfully, but I'm a close friend of Jane's and I've known Eve since she was a tiny little girl. And the reason I'm here today was because I retired at the end of April and I was chatting to Jane one day. We're going for a walk actually, weren't we, Jane? Just talking about the sorts of options, the things that I was thinking of doing as I was a new retiredee, as my husband likes to call us. And Jane said, well, we've got an opportunity, we're looking for trustees, and perhaps that would be something that you'd like to consider doing. So I thought about it, and one of the things that certainly dawned on me is just how much it involves. There's lots to do in terms of being a trustee, and I'm amazed and inspired by the work that's been done by the organisation. My own background, and I'm hoping that the skills that I've learnt in 38 years of working, I've worked in education and training since I started work in, I think, 1979 as a secondary school teacher. Then I moved into vocational education, post-16 education, and I'm hoping that the skills I've learnt in terms of project management, customer service, training and development, and a little bit of work around events and managing businesses and key accounts. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to transfer those skills into the role of becoming a trustee. So at the moment I haven't got any particular areas that I look after, but I'm available perhaps to support Jane. Maybe I could become Jane's assistant, but that's me. And it's really nice to meet everybody here today. Anybody?
It won't be long before Stella is put directly into a role. Okay, now we have Judith Robinson, who is our life president. She pretty much founded GIST. Where are you? Support UK. Oh, there you are. So come and tell us a bit about yourself. These next people are supporters. They're volunteer. They're all volunteers, as we all are, but rather than official trustees, they all help in some way or other. So.
Yeah. I got involved, like Sheena, very near the beginning, when Novartis was still organising the patient meetings, and we were very, very few in number, and eventually David and I and David Cook and his wife and one or two other people set GIST Support up as an independent charity. And Novartis was very happy with that. I think that's what they were hoping for in the first place. So I was president or chair for quite a long time, and I was diagnosed in 2001, had half my stomach removed along with a tumour in my spleen. Then imatinib wasn't available then, so except for people for whom surgery wasn't an option. So they just kept monitoring me at the Marsden. After 7.5 years, it came back. I took imatinib for about six to 8 months, I think. Had half my liver removed. And since then, I'm okay, apart from a damaged knee as a result of a traffic accident, which is nothing to do with the GIST, obviously. And I'm getting older, as we all are, and I decided really I needed a break. Barbara Dorey took over for a while, and then I came back, and then finally Nick agreed to take over as chair, and that's been a huge relief. I stayed on as vice chair for, was it a couple of years? And now I'm very happy to take more of a back seat. And I'm still a patient advocate, but I'm very happy to let the youngsters take over. Thank you.
Well, can you hear me? Splendid. Well, I'm David Robinson, and my chief role has been to be Judith's husband. And of course, I've accompanied her in quite a long and quite a difficult GIST journey. My own background has been entirely in IT. I was designing computers in the mid-1950s. So I'm a little bit long in the tooth, technically. But it fell to me to do the first pick at the website and to set up the database which we use and to set up the listserv system which we use. And so that's been my role as a sort of techie. But as time goes by, I realise I've been in the computing business for 60 years, which is really quite a long while. It's time for me to hand over. But at the moment, I prop up the website, I prop up the database, and I try to solve problems that people encounter on listserv as well. It's all getting a little bit difficult because my sort of technical background is at least 10 years out of date, and probably in some cases more. That's enough from me. Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon, and I'm a GIST patient diagnosed in 2014 with a stomach GIST 6 centimetres, which was removed by my local hospital. And I was told, everything's fine, see you in a year. I wasn't quite happy with that, and I got a referral to the Marsden, where they told me I was a wild-type GIST, and there was a high risk of repeat. But fortunately, I've been extremely lucky, but not complacent, because I'm now under the Marsden and on 6 monthly scans, just from quarterly. And I decided not to take the drug when the doctor said you can take it or not. So I decided not to take it and take the gamble, knowing I was having quarterly scans. So there's been no evidence of disease now for two and a half years, which is great. I come from a conference and events background, organising events from 15 people to 15,000 around the world, and it seemed a natural fit for me to offer my services on a basis of just helping out with events. My family tell me I'm very bossy, so I'm sorry if I come over bossy to you, but it does help sometimes when negotiating with hotels. So thank you for all your support and communicating well. Thank you.
On special projects, and still heavily involved, but obviously the demands of her full-time job are a priority. David's been with us since the outset. I think David's the one that Judith mentioned initially, or Sheena mentioned, had originally been sort of working with Life Raft Group to set up a GIST capability in the UK. He will be manning some of our phones when people are first diagnosed and they call our helpline. He's going to be helping out there. And Alex, also a trustee with a full-time job that's also very demanding. So he's obviously still volunteering, and he's the chap who organises this 1,000-kilometre cycle ride, which has been happening for the last few years to the south of France. So he's very able on the fundraising front in that department. And the other person who's manning our phones is a lady called Marion Oliver, but I don't have a photograph for her at the moment, so hence the fact we've got the telephone there. And another new person is Deborah. Would you like to come and say a few words?
Hi Hi everybody, so is that working? Okay, so I'm Deborah Morgan, that's me there. Hopefully I don't look quite so shiny in real life as I do on my photograph. So I have a similar background to David actually. I'm also from the pharmaceutical background, from the same organisation, and that's how I got to know Jane and Judith. It must be about 3 or 4 years ago, when I used to attend I was a patient advocate for this organisation, working with patient organisations over a range of different therapies, mainly rare and rare oncology, so that's sort of my background. So Jane has sort of asked me if I would be interested in becoming a trustee, so I'm very honoured to have been asked. And hopefully some of my work, I did quite a lot of work in policy, specialised commissioning and that sort of thing, so hopefully I can support Jane with some of that. And whatever else people throw at me, I will try my best to support the organisation.
We have a special guest here today as well, who, Audrey, if you'd like to come up. Michael Sayers, who I'm sure those of you who have been involved with Just Support UK for a while will have known Michael. He was a very, very inspirational member of our community. Unfortunately lost his battle with GIST a few months ago, and Audrey has come today, his wife, to have a quick chat with you about Michael and to maybe hand something over. So,
hello, I'm Audrey. It's just to tell you that, you know, Michael had GIST for 13 and a half years, and it took about 6 months before he got his diagnosis because he was having various tests, and then eventually he was referred to the Royal Marsden, and he continued to be with them up until, you know, he passed away in March. And he loved being a member of GIST. He was with Judith and David when they first got the GIST support going, and he continued, he was a trustee, and he just continued to be part of it. He loved everything about GIST, you know, he was happy to be part of something that was doing something to inform people about GIST. And, you know, he just, even when he was very, very ill, he still had a positive outlook. You know, he didn't sort of think, oh, you know, I haven't got much longer to live, or, you know, this is how it is. He just kept that positive stance about life right to the very end. And obviously, I would like to continue to be part of this. I've got to think what role, you know, I could take on. And I have brought with me today, for those who knew Michael and wasn't able to get this, I've brought some of his booklets. If you would like to have a copy, it's got some photographs of him throughout his GIST journey. And also, we did a collection for the charities that he was involved with. And I wanted to present to Nick, you know, a check. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael's legacy continues with things like this, so thank you very much, Audrey. And by all means, have a look at those booklets. And we're hoping that Audrey might put together a booklet or something of all Michael's posts that he used to do on our listserv. I used the word inspirational before. I mean, he's helped a lot of people go through GIST, and I think those posts will continue to help people if Audrey finds the time and the energy to and the inspiration to put that together. That would be very welcomed. Good. Okay, there you are, work in progress. Okay, thank you very much, Audrey.